Once you've learned heat embossing, trying basic embossed resist is a logical next step that'll open a whole new world of possibilities as you explore various mediums and techniques like ink blending and no-line watercolor. Every technique video is narrated live while I'm doing the technique, so you're getting a real-time view of how the whole process works. Pull out the supplies I'm using and create right along with me, pausing as you need. Before we get started, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to my channel. I appreciate it. In a way, Emboss Resist is an advanced technique because it requires you to not only know how to heat emboss, but it requires you to know other techniques that you can mix with your heat embossing. So if you think of it that way, this will open up a whole new world of ideas for you as we go. I'm going to show you two examples of where Emboss Resist works really well. The first one is going to be for ink blending, and the second one is going to be for learning some no-line watercolor. When you're thinking about ink blending, sometimes you need to have the end in mind. In the case of wanting to add a stamped image over the top, you're probably going to want to do Emboss Resist. And that's because once you've laid down all of your ink for your blending, your paper is wet. And then if you try to do your embossing over it, a lot of times your embossing powder is not only going to land on your stamped images, but it's going to land in all of those spaces in between, and it's going to be a mess. So it's easier to do Emboss Resist because you end up with perfect results. So the first thing you're going to want to do is emboss your image, whether that's clear or colored or metallic, whatever you want to do for your embossing, that's just fine. Then you're going to go ahead and just apply your ink blending over the top. So in this case, I'm just going to do a single ink blend with some Kitsch Flamingo, and maybe I'm not going to blend everywhere. Maybe I just want to do a halo around the outside. So now I can just add in my ink blend around the outer edges here and create this really cool look. Of course, you can go in with multiple colors and do anything that you would normally do with ink blending. Say you wanted to do an ombre effect or a rainbow or whatever. You certainly could do any of that with your Emboss Resist. And so the great thing is you've already got your image down and you're just putting that color over the top. If you're working with clear, you're definitely going to want to wipe this off when you're done to make sure that you get any of your stray ink off of the edges of your embossing. And there we go. So look, I've got a beautiful ink blended panel. I've already got my embossing in place. If I need to work off any of that excess ink, I'm just going to take a paper towel and run right over it and just grab that extra color, and it's beautiful. So you don't have to struggle with your ink blending and your embossing as long as you do your embossing first and do the Emboss Resist technique. The second effect we're going to achieve is with watercolor. So for this technique, instead of doing just a regular embossing with a color or a metallic or whatever, I did the emboss in any color technique. And I stamped in Kitsch Flamingo and did my embossing over the top. So now it's Kitsch Flamingo stamped images with embossing over them. So these are going to stay in place. And this is really great when you're learning how to do no-line watercolor, or if you want to have a quicker way to achieve no-line watercolor. So I'm going to use Kitsch Flamingo again then to go ahead and watercolor in the spaces. And this is basically giving you guardrails around your image so that the water doesn't extend out beyond the edges. It's going to grab right in those spaces and create a no-line look because I'm using both Kitsch Flamingo for my outline and for the color inside. And as you can see, I mean, it's just so easy to get these colors right in here. They're not extending outside. I don't have to worry about my lines melting away because they're already covered in embossing powder. And it's just going to create a really simple no-line look that you can have accomplished in no time. So even though you can consider Emboss Resist an advanced technique because you have to mix techniques together in order to achieve that final look, the components, once you've learned them, are so easy that mixing them together really just opens up a ton of possibilities for you in your crafting. I hope you enjoyed this technique and you add it into your toolbox sometime soon. When you give it a try, share it out on Instagram and tag me at NicoleWatt I always love to see what your creative mind is thinking. Thank you so much for spending a little time with me today. And until next time, happy crafting.